My name's Rick Jacobs, and thanks to you, I don't have to introduce Ron Galperin. I realize that the controller and I are the only thing standing between you and the season premiere of Game of Thrones, so
Yeah.
we'll see what we can do. First, Dean Hansel. Dean left. I think Dean had another event at his other house. Dean, thank you. Terrific. And thanks to Jay, too. I didn't know this organization until today. What a great organization it is. You know, there's a lot I could say about Ron Galperin. And happily, there's very little I will say. You know, this time last year, the LA Times had again endorsed Ron, the Daily News had endorsed Ron, and here was Ron, yet again, the most qualified possible candidate in his political race, and yet again, everybody knew he'd lose. That's what everybody said. Remember everybody? Oh, Dennis Sine's going to win. Ron doesn't have any name recognition. And who really wants to be controller anyway? You know, but a few people knew Ron would win. You know who really knew Ron would win? Ron. And you know who else knew Ron would win? His husband, Zach. And the great thing about Ron is that's about all he needed. And Ron went to work. He never stopped. And he went and he told people what it means to make Los Angeles transparent, what it means to really look after the city. And he smiled, and he never, ever, ever gave up. Well, June 30th, 2013, just a little less than a year ago, a lot of us were sitting outside of the beautiful City Hall, looking at the West Steps, these glinting sunlight on that marble building, waiting for Superman to come out. And of course, there they came. We did see them, my good friends and a lot of other people's good friends, Amy Elaine Wakeland and Mayor-elect Garcetti. They came down the stairs and it looked so beautiful. Something else happened that day. Two gay couples walked down the steps. Mike Bonin, council member-elect, and his fiancée, Sean Arian, holding hands, just as natural as they could be. Ron Galperin and his husband, Rabbi Zach Shapiro, came walking down those steps, just as natural as they could be. And it was just a few days before that we'd seen Prop 8 die its last death. Remember? Antonio Villaraigosa conducted those very first marriages on that Friday, right before the swearing in on a Sunday. So you'd think we'd all be thrilled to see these two beautiful gay couples, Ron Galperin and his husband, Rabbi Shapiro, holding hands. Ron, the first openly gay elected official, citywide elected official in Los Angeles history. But you know what? It was nice. Mike fell. I love Ron. How can you not? But no one cared. You know, in a way, people were more excited that there were three citywide elected Jewish officials than that one of them was gay. And that kind of says it all, doesn't it? We've come a long way. You know, Ron Galperin is controller because he's smart, he's balanced, he's fearless. You don't know this, he's funny as hell. Get a little wine in sometime. He can sing, he loves, he works tirelessly. And you know what? He knows true transparency and honesty are true north. Let me read a few lines from Los Angeles Times columnist Steve Lopez's column last week. And I quote, "Two opposing forces squared off last week in the latest round of a long-running battle over a $40 million mystery. In one corner was one of those powerful heavyweights in the history of local politics, Brian Darcy of the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers Union 18. On the other side was a wonkish, nerdy newcomer on the political scene, City Controller Ron Galperin. And the pipsqueak knocked out the bully. You know, I had the privilege of seeing Controller Galperin, who is no pipsqueak, and Mayor Garcetti, both friends for many, many years. And, you know, Ron and I have known each other, I think, since we were in kindergarten in the 1980s. I've seen them work as colleagues and partners to restore faith in the Department of Water and Power, in the city's finances, and in the very essence of the city's political processes. You know what? Now I have the high honor and the privilege of presenting to you a first-class mensch, a hero, and an unstoppable optimist, Zach's husband, Ron Galperin.
Yep.
Susie, am I doing this right?
Good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon.
And I promise you, I will not stand in the way of Game of Thrones. It's really a great privilege to be here and to be honored by JQ and by all of you at this Inspiration Award. I'm really humbled and grateful to be here this afternoon in this wonderful yard here of Dean Hansel, who's such a dear friend as well. And I'm really inspired by everybody that is here today. And I've known about a number of the things that you've done over the years, but never really had a chance to hear from you and hear as much about you as I did today, and how grateful we should all be that there are such amazing leaders out there doing the kind of work that you're doing. I also wanted to really thank Asher Gellis, who's Mr. JQ, as they say. He's here, Tim Eagle, the whole board and advisory board of JQ. And a special thank you to Rick Jacobs, who has been a real inspiration to me for all these many years as head of the Courage Campaign in your incredible business endeavors, in your fight against Prop 8, in so many things. I used to look and think, I want to be like him. How can I be more like him? And now that I get to work with you at City Hall, he's become a big macher at City Hall, actually. And what a pleasure it is to be able to work with you. And congrats, of course, to Ted Schatz and to Inez Tiger. You really are a great inspiration, I have to say. What does it mean to really have Jewish values, or LGBT values for that matter? What does it mean to have a Jewish identity, or an LGBT identity? And what does it really mean to be part of a Jewish community, or the Jewish community, or part of an LGBTQ community, or the LGBTQ community? Now, of course, these mean very different things to a lot of people. But I think that there are some strands that run through all of these. And indeed, I believe there are some incredible shared values, shared identity, and a sense of shared community. Now, I noticed one of the programs that JQ has is called Twice Blessed, and it's dedicated to highlighting positive images and stories about the Jewish queer community. Now, I remember back in 1989, which was my first encounter with Twice Blessed, and it was actually a book that had come out that year, and it was a collection of all of these lesbian, gay, Jewish stories and essays, and I devoured that book. It was for me a revelation that, first of all, you could be gay, and you could be Jewish, and you see that they were both great blessings. And it was amazing to actually read that book, because I had a great sense of Jewish identity, having grown up and being really entrenched within the Jewish community, and my father's a rabbi, and my mother was a Jewish educator, and my parents were both in the Israeli army and fought in the War of Independence in 1948. And then I also had this growing sense of gay identity. It was really kind of in its nascent stages at that point. But the two hadn't really come together. And as a matter of fact, when I moved to Los Angeles, I took a job on the weekends as a part-time cantor at a congregation in Montebello. And I ended up serving there for 20 years. But when I first started there, I wasn't out, as if anybody would not realize, but okay. And so it took a couple of years until those two identities really began to kind of gel and come together. By the way, when people ask me what my readiness was for the rough and tumble of City Hall politics, I told them quite honestly that, hey, I'd spent all these years at a synagogue. You can do those politics, you go to City Hall, it's easy. So what are these shared values? They are shared values, I believe, of tikkun olam, of progress, of equality, and of questioning. What I love about Judaism is that you question everything, and that you can and that in fact you should question everything, and that conventional thought isn't necessarily right. And what is the shared identity? I think it's a shared identity of an experience of marginalization, an experience of overcoming obstacles, an experience of sometimes being an other, and being able to understand what that feels like. And then what is that shared community? It's, I think, a community of people who are dedicated to really doing something meaningful and impactful, and to have a sense of community responsibility, where we are arevim zulazu, as they say in Hebrew, where we are responsible one for the other. Now, I consider myself, I have to say, much more than just merely twice blessed. Many, many times blessed. I have an amazing family and friends and work and health. I love my job at City Hall, I have to say. And then there is, of course, the biggest blessing of my life, Rabbi Zach Shapiro, my husband. Come up here, by the way, please. By the way, everybody should have their own personal way rabbi. I will say this, my father's rabbi, my grandfather was one, and I love them very much. The last person I ever thought I would end up settling with is a rabbi. Go figure, the things we run from. Rick told the story of how we walked down those stairs from City Hall onto the podium on the day that I had the honor of being inaugurated. And it's really interesting, we started walking down those stairs, and we hadn't really thought a lot about the choreography of that. And then we saw a number of the other couples as they were walking down, and then they were holding hands. And so Zach looks at me, I look at him, and we each had things in our hands, and then we started fumbling real quickly to put them into the other hand so that we could then join hands. And it made all the difference in the world for us as individuals that day to be able to do that. And little did I realize how impactful it was that after that inauguration was over, and this of course was, as you mentioned, right after Prop 8 was struck down by the US Supreme Court, the number of people who walked up to us, and that it resonated so much for them that we were able to walk down hand in hand. And then add to that, that same afternoon, when each of us who was inaugurated that day, the mayor and the city attorney and myself, we each, interestingly enough, we didn't plan this, we each actually talked about the experience of our families as immigrants from Russia, from Poland, from Romania, that sort of Jewish experience, and go figure that all three elected officials who are citywide in the city of LA are Jewish. And how amazing it was that people felt that, and they looked at this identity of being gay and of being Jewish, and for many of them it was inspirational, and for many it was just, hey, this is LA! And that is terrific in and of itself. So I just wanted to really say thank you so much for the opportunity to be with you here today, to really honor these other two folks who are doing amazing work, and to be inspired, hopefully, to go forth in the coming week, and to each be able to do our part, to do a little bit more for each of our communities and for our friends and for our neighbors. And with that, I again say thank you.